Yes.
Welcome, everyone.
Oh, it makes me so happy to see all these people. Fantastic. Someone's asking me to email them the link right now. All right, Jenny, there's still people lined up trying to get in or? Okay. Well, welcome everybody. We are so happy to see you. I am so happy to see your faces, the ones I can see, and the names of the others who I can't see. Some of you I've met in person, and some of you are just names that I recognize because of the great things you have written, that I've read, or the interaction that I've had with you online. It's very fortifying and comforting, actually, just to see you and to be surrounded by you tonight. So welcome and thank you so much for joining with us in this work. We are going to just jump right in. I know everybody's time is very precious and we are all pressed for it right now. We have Ezra Smith, who is an attorney who's volunteered to help us with this training, and he's prepared the training for tonight. So hi, Ezra, and we're going to turn this over to you.
Okay, hey, thanks, Gwen. So this is going to be less of a formal training session. I think this will be pretty quick. I kind of just want to go through tips, best practices, things to think about for testifying before the House Education Committee. I think most of the folks on this call either are planning to be there or would like to learn more about testifying. And so this is sort of centered around what it would be required, sort of homework to get ready, and then what the day of sort of looks like. So for those who do not know, LEARNs will be before the House Education Committee this Tuesday, which I believe they start at 9:30. Is that right, Gwen?
9, I think.
9, okay. And
That's
so
the latest thing said. That's why we're meeting at 8 on the Capitol steps. And then we're going to walk to Big Mac, which is where the building where the meeting is.
Got it. Okay. So we've talked about this on previous calls. Committee testimony is one of the most impactful things a person can do in terms of the legislative process. Your testimony will be a part of the record of this bill. It will also be captured in video. It's a very important part of just letting the legislators know specifically what our concerns are with this bill. And it's a powerful moment, right? Because instead of tweeting at them or calling them, you're sitting across from the legislators at the table. So first on my list, I think Gwen would agree with me. Let us know if you are coming, right? It's great. We're talking to you. We're trying to make plans to meet. But if you haven't let us know that you're going to join us on Tuesday, please let Gwen, let Jenny know. Arrive early. I'm a big fan of getting there way earlier than you need to. So 8's great. Earlier is fine. I don't think there's going to be a lot of problems in terms of getting to where you need to be. But certainly, traffic, other things, you don't want to get delayed. Once you get into the room, right, and once you've made you've come in, you found a spot, the first thing you want to do is put your name on the list. Gwen, are you going to be there and sort of helping folks, line up to sign up so that they can testify?
I will, or someone from Arkansas Strong will. Our plan right now is to meet on the Capitol steps at 8. And depending on how many show up, my vision is that an enormous group shows up and we have this presence and the press are there and there are pictures and things happening. Then we will walk either through the Capitol or around the Capitol to Big Mac, which is the building in the room where the House Ed Committee meeting is going to be. If not, there will be someone from Arkansas Strong, Jenny, or someone else who will be there to help people sign up if there's, if those logistics don't exactly iron out. Jenny, are you there? Do you want to say anything else about that?
Yes. And sorry, my recording crashed and that's why it maybe got weird for a second. And I had to restart it. Yes, we will. I'm going to pull the map that that Arkansas Strong sent out for the last meeting that we did, which has the Big Mac location. And I'm just going to drop that in a Google Drive and share it with this group so everybody can see it. In case anybody has questions about parking or where that's located. If you get there later and we've already left the Capitol steps, you can just go directly to Big Mac. I think you covered it all.
All right.
So, okay. So back to kind of thinking about prep. You obviously need to dress appropriately. I think I can't hit that home enough, right? This is not a formal occasion, but this is also not the time to show up in athletic gear, right? We're here to testify. We're here to represent our school district, our community. And so that's really important, right? We hope to be able to use some of this video. And so we definitely want to bring the respect to the committee room. But let's kind of think about what we need to do before the day of. And so we really only have tomorrow, maybe this evening, if you have time.
Let's talk about the LEARNS Act.
And so the primary thing to think about is, how am I going to prepare for this? If you're coming to the Capitol Tuesday morning and you think you might testify, well, then you should definitely prepare as if you are going to testify. And so, recognize that this is not a big speech. You are not going to have an opportunity to opine, right, on all the problems in this bill, and that would take days, right, to explain everything that's wrong. You're going to get a very short window. You're going to get 45 seconds to 2 minutes to introduce yourself to the committee, to let them know who you are and where you're from so that they care to listen to you, maybe, right? To say what you want the committee to do that day, and then to make a few brief points. So when you're thinking about this, I do not think to do that well, you can prep all that in the morning, right? Driving to the Capitol. This is something where you want to spend time setting up your statement, right? Your introduction to them, immediately then moving to what you're asking the committee to do, right? I'm here to ask you to amend this bill or split it up, right? There's a lot of different asks here. Change bad things or break the bill apart so we can have up or down votes. Or, right, the message to the committee could also be, take this off the fast track. Stop pushing this through basically in 2 weeks, right? Because we've seen from introduction to reading, it's very clear that Governor Huckabee has directed her allies in the state legislature to do this as quickly as possible. So one good ask for the committee might be, stop, right? Session is long. There's time for this to be heard. There's clearly a public outcry, and there's a lot in this bill. So it's a lot to digest. But whatever you're going to ask them, right, when you get up there, you will become nervous, right? It's not intimidating. I don't want you to be scared, but you'll have a microphone and all of these people are listening to you and you've got a crowd behind you. And so it's, that's the area where people freeze up and then they start to stumble, and then it's sort of just kind of, it goes from there. So if you can start strong with a clear and direct, this is who I am, this is what I do, right? And this is where I'm from, and here's what I want, right? Here's that thing I need you to do today. And so for me, I think if I'm preparing for that, I'm writing that out. I'm spending time thinking about how I want to approach it, and then I'm going to practice it. My best advice, right, is to do this several times. Walk around, do it in front of your family, or have some friends listen to you, in front of the mirror, right? I mean, whatever you want to do, but let these words, kind of ruminate before you have to say them live. And because you're going to get some of the jitters out, right? But you'll be more intimidated if you get there and this is the first time you're thinking, okay, gosh, I got to scramble and put all this stuff down on paper. That said, you can certainly bring notes with you, but don't read. People reading or people, just repeating a short memorized phrase, people can hear that, right? The difference in tone and intonation and the way that we speak naturally versus the way that we speak when we're reading or we've memorized. Committee members are people, right? They're obviously super political. They do this all day long, but they're also just people. And so when things are boring or monotoned, they tune out, right? And so your great message is lost on them because they're just not paying attention. And instead of listening to you, they're just scrolling on Twitter, right? But if you're up there and speaking to them and you're there with a conversational tone, you will be more engaging, right? That's just the nature of human communication. A big point that we are trying to get right in our opposition to this bill is coordinating between all of the different people and the different groups in Arkansas who are sort of forming up, right, to make themselves heard in their opposition to this legislation. And the hardest part about doing that is keeping everybody on the same message. We don't want to tell you what to say, and we don't want to try to, tell you or your group or your community what your issues are. What we would like to do is not be super repetitive, right? If everyone is hitting the same isolated complaint about the LEARNS Act, and there are many problems, right? Well, we risk one, isolating our opposition to just one thing. But more importantly, right, we fail to demonstrate to everybody, including the legislature, all of the things that we would want to see amended or pulled out of this bill before we feel like it would be something that would be good for Arkansas. And so one thing we want to do, and one thing you can help us with, is while you are listening to other people's testimony in front of you, if they key in on several points or you feel like several people have hit the same point, right, don't get up there and give give that same line back to them again. We need to kind of break that up. So if you see things that have not been said, that's what we want you to grab and gravitate towards. Jenny, did you have something you want to say? I saw you came back online.
No, sorry, continue.
Okay. It's difficult, right, when you're there and you've got your thing, but we want to try to spread that out. So there are talking points, there are different, there are things that we can help you with, but we want to try to hit as many points as possible. I think when we think about getting into the room, right, so you will have your chance, you will be called up, you're going to come down there and sit down. And like I said, you've got no more than 2 minutes. So this is the time to practice your elevator pitch. And you may want to have a couple different things, right? You may say, okay, well, I'll have this and I can choose, right, which thing I'm going to talk about when I get up there. I think that's a good idea. That makes you very dynamic. And you will notice, right, in some of the committees, I think less and less we're going to see this, but legislators will interact with you. They may ask you a question, they may follow up with you. And so that's when it gets kind of tough, right? Because you don't know what they're going to ask and you don't know how that can go. My advice would be engage with any legislator, right? If a legislator, a supporter, or someone who's in opposition to the act, I mean, you don't know, right, asks you a question, the best thing you can do is try to meaningfully answer it. You may have someone who is, very opposed to you being there. We have seen a sort of really dramatic response by some of the legislature to educators showing up to the Capitol. So you may get a negative response from a legislator. You may get a question that is like offensive or just kind of rude, or maybe it just kind of misses the point, right? My best advice to you is don't be combative. And, most of the legislators, right, are very adept into political communication. They have gotten to Little Rock because they are good at politics. So they're pretty good at drawing you out, right, and trying to make their point. And if they can make you combative, if they can make it look like you are there angry or that you're there fighting them or are disrespectful, that's a way that they win, right? Because it's no longer about the substance, right, of what we want to see, what is good for Arkansas and for Arkansas children in schools, but it becomes about a political thing. So it's fine to disagree, and it's fine to say, no, Representative, I don't think that, right? Or I think for these reasons, this bill will hurt my community. But to the best of your ability, I would just say, try not to be combative. Even if you feel like they're really, we've seen some legislators go after schools and try to get teachers in trouble for showing up. So, you may feel that kind of heat when you're there. While you're speaking, try your best to take a deep breath and slow down. You're going to immediately start talking faster when you get up there. And it's just difficult to hear. And keep in mind, we're trying to make a good point in the room, right? But we're also going to maybe use the footage of this to blast this out, right, to a much larger audience, with the hope, right, of building support against this legislation. And so, to some degree, you're giving us really good video. And so if we can't use it, then it kind of hurts part of our goal for that day. You may ask legislators questions, right, in that back and forth, but I would just give you the same advice we give trial lawyers. Don't ask any questions you don't know the answer to, right? Don't get into any sort of back and forth with these folks where you're not confident about what you're talking about, right? Because that's another way that legislators will try to kind of draw you out and start to kind of make it a distraction from what's going on. That said, this is going to be really fun. I mean, this is an opportunity to engage. I know it doesn't always feel like you are being heard, but you are. And you can change minds. I mean, I understand that the political support growing for this legislation is really strong, but I mean, I haven't seen grassroots engagement at this level in Arkansas in a really long time. And so I think that's a really big deal. And I don't think that this is a foregone conclusion that this thing is going to pass. And so showing up on Tuesday is sort of like the next big thing in this fight. And so if we can show up and really show out with great points, right, diverse talking points from all over the state, it's going to build support, at least against at least to slow the thing down. And if we can slow the bill down, right, maybe we can actually have some good come, right, some decent amendments that can improve the bill. I mean, because at the end of the day, this is what this is about. I mean, this is all for nothing, right? If bad legislation passes and there's, and our teachers, again, just have to bear the brunt of this. So
Can I piggyback off of that for a sec, Ezra?
Yeah, please.
I love what you said about what we can actually change. So when you go, and this is just, stop me if Ezra, if you've already said this, but a lot of people, when they go up there, they forget to make sure that the mic is on. Maybe the person before you turned it off, or maybe not. So just before you go up, make sure that the mic is on. If not, they'll make you turn it on so everybody can hear you. Make sure you state your full name for the record, as Ezra said. And really, it's just about introducing yourself, saying why you're there, and then saying what you want them to do. And that last part is really important. To Ezra's point, we need to ask them to do specific things to this bill to make it more palatable. But you always want to ask bigger than what they're actually going to do, right? You want to over ask, and they're going to under promise if they do anything, but that needs to be very clear. What do you not like about the bill? You don't have to go on and on and on about the things that you love. You don't have to make them feel good. You're there to say what you don't love about it, and what you want them to change. And that's really important that they hear from educators, in my opinion. Gwen, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, to me, like, to make it easy. And I think this has been some good big picture stuff, but the first thing I think of when I'm listening to and looking at all these people is, you guys are teachers, you know how to talk in front of people. This is what you do. Like, this is we are some of the best people at doing this in the world. Okay. And I've been watching educators speak in front of committees, and they've been knocking it out of the ballpark, and they're scared to death, and they don't think they're going to do good, or they don't realize it. But what I have learned from interacting with legislators is that teachers, every person on this call, I guarantee you, knows more than 99% of those legislators know about education and probably about the LEARNS bill itself. And so, go in with a kind and humble spirit, but also with that confidence, that same confidence that you get up in front of your class, like you're in charge. And to me, there's three things that break this down: who you are, why you're there, what you want them to do. Okay. So, I am, hi, good afternoon, good morning. Thank you for letting me speak. Thank you for your service, whatever you want to say. My name is Gwen Falconberry. I'm a teacher at Ozark, which I'm not. I'm a teacher at Arkansas Tech, but whatever you want to, I teach fifth grade at wherever elementary school. I am a high school English teacher. If you don't even want to say, specifically your school, I'm a high school English teacher. And I am here to represent and like what I want you guys thinking about is your why. When I go, I have like certain people in my mind, and I think there's different ways we can break this up. And I am not so concerned with, and I don't think that Ezra meant it this way as far as like not talking about the same things, but something I have noticed in doing this with educators is we end up being diverse just by being there. Like when you get there, or when you're working on this, think about the most important thing to you. Like, why are you passionate about this? Why do you want to go talk to them? What is it? Like for me, there's a couple of things. I think about those kids in my district who live in these little shacks who have not enough food to eat. There's 67% of our district is on free and reduced lunches. I think about that kid who is in class with my kids who doesn't have a mom and daddy at home making sure they have a hot breakfast. And if that bus does not, pull down that bumpy dirt road, nobody's going to take them to school. And when they get to school at Ozark, no matter what kind of situation they came from or how much sleep they got or what they had to eat or what their clothes like that look like, they have the same access to a highly professional trained teacher that every other kid has. They have a warm, safe place to go to school. They have textbooks. They have a library where they can check out books and see a whole new world that they would never see if they only looked out their little window into the woods or wherever they are. And so think about those stories. That's the power that educators have, is we all have those relationships. You have that one kid that has made you crazy, or who has made you where you can't sleep at night because you're worried about them. Those are the stories. We're bringing those stories to the legislators because most of them have never been in a classroom since they've been in school. This is not their job. They do not know what this is like. They do not know our students, and we've got to bring our students, we've got to bring their stories so it makes them see them and makes them know this is who this is hurting, right? And then I think another angle is just as a teacher, this is how this hurts me, right? And whatever it is, like there's, I don't even know if I'm going to speak because I've got a daughter who's thinking about speaking, and they hear enough from the Falconberries anyway, but another angle that I could take if I was going to go would be to say, look, I'm getting up every day and I am taking snacks so my kids can have something to eat at school. And I'm giving people a ride, and I'm going to their ball games because I care about them. And I have been called an indoctrinator. I've been told I was lazy. I have been told that my superintendent is my enemy. That is wrong. I do not trust this bill to look out for my interests, in the interest of my community and the interest of my kids. Slow it down. There are a few things here that look good and that make me feel good and that I appreciate that, but we've got to take this apart one thing at a time and really understand it. And then if you are a policy person who understands how crazy some of this policy is, You know how no one really knows where the funding is going to come from. That's going to be all settled in rules, or the Department of Ed will figure this out later. Talk about that policy specifically. I guarantee you there's people on this call who are a dang lot smarter about all the policy than some of those people who will be voting on this. And so back to the journalistic questions, right? And this is just coming straight out of teaching an English class and teaching people how to write. Who you are, why you're there, what it is, you know, that is keeping you up at night. That's going to be your most important thing to talk about in your 2 minutes that you have. And then what you want them to do. You know, for me, some of these big whats are, the simplest thing is slow the thing down, because it is crazy to be ramming this through here. And I can just tell all of you this, which you already know it anyway, because you're smart. The reason they're ramming this through is because the longer it goes on, the madder people get about it, the more upset people get about it, the more people, it's like a rolling stone, you know, no, it isn't, because those catch no moss, but it's like a snowball. It keeps on going and going and going. I mean, I participated in the senior center in Farmington that was packed full of people on a Friday night with people worrying about this. And they know that if they do not ram this through here, that's only going to gain more and more momentum. So we want to slow them down, right? That's a big good thing that could happen, is just slow it down. But for me, the other huge thing is, I don't care if everything else about this bill is great. Vouchers are a scam. It doesn't work. It's Bruce Cozart, the representative, one of the ones we're going to be speaking to, and he put his name on the bill, told me and other teachers standing in the hall of the Capitol 2 weeks ago that this is for the rich, and the rich are going to get it, and there's no stopping it. Well, in a calm, nice voice, we can say, we know this, right? We know that this does not really, and you can give them some statistics. They're easy to find. I can give them to you. Send me a text or an email, and I'll point you right to just some very quick data points. This does not work. It's not proven to work. The voucher part, I mean, we don't even have to get into any other bit of it. Passing universal vouchers in the state of Arkansas is a betrayal of Arkansas children. 92% of children in public schools in rural places across this entire state. It's a betrayal of them, and it's a betrayal of our communities. And stop vouchers. Get that out of it. We could probably honestly deal with the other stuff if we got rid of that. That's why it's wrapped in there. So those are some things like that. Those are the things that keep me up at night. Those are the things that make me, like, you know, obviously that I feel real passionate. Those are the things that if I'm up there talking, that's going to be here's who I am, here's why I'm here, and here's what I want you to do. And so I think just, you know, boil that down in your head. The main thing you want to see happen. You know, the main thing that's driving you, the reason that you would take off work and be there, you know, on your own personal day and to talk to them. And so those are some of my thoughts.
So Gwen, I think we were trying to keep this pretty short tonight. Does anybody have any questions specifically about testifying on Tuesday? I know we can all talk policy on this bill. Like I said, we could talk about it for days. Does anybody have any specific questions that we can kind of talk about in terms of testimony?
Or any other questions, like any other way that we can help you. If you're not on here, you know, for help with your speech and you're just trying to talk to people in your community, is there anything that you need or that you want to voice or ask on here, or even put it in the chat if you want, and we'll look at it. You guys ready to go?
I have a question about the Fair Teacher Dismissal Act.
Okay, where are you? Who are you? Jesse?
This is Jesse Magruder. I'm in,
okay, I just saw you. Okay, what is it,
Brittany
Jesse?
County. The Fair Teacher Dismissal Act. I have teachers here who are concerned about that being a part of the bill. and they're concerned about their jobs, even though we are in a teacher shortage.
Right.
I'll say that someone from our coalition circulated the amendments that have been filed, the first round of amendments that have been filed for LEARNs. And there is some new language in there that would guarantee some due process for educators if they're filed. I cannot tell you how it compares or contrasts to the original Fair Dismissal Act, but that was brought up a lot on the Senate floor, and that has since been amended. So I'll drop that in the chat so you guys can access it and see what the updated language looks like, if that's helpful to you.
Jenny, I will try to take a minute and digest that too, and provide maybe some talking points on what the amendments would do.
Jesse, did that answer your question, or do you have?
It did, because I listened to the hearing in the Senate, and there were questions about that was going to be removed
Yeah.
before it passed the Senate, and it wasn't removed. So I would like to see that language now.
Okay. Why were people saying reps were trying to turn superintendents against us and against them? That's Mr. H asking that. Mr. H, there may be others who could answer this as well or better than I can. I can just speak from my personal experience in conversations with reps and senators. It is a tactic of the pro-voucher lobby, which a lot of our legislators are beholden to that lobby, that group of we spoke to a legislator, a Senator Bart Hester, and during that conversation, he started blaming superintendents for the problems that many of our schools are facing. And one of the things he said was that the state sends money to the schools that then the superintendents withhold from teachers and spend on other things. And I jumped in there and said, well, you know, I'd like to know where that's happening, because typically, you know, in our experience, the superintendents are a team. I mean, we don't always get along, but we're all like, we're part of the same team and like trying to do the same thing, which is serve students. And he said the words, superintendents are my enemy. And I clarified that with him, and I said, did you say superintendents are your enemy? I said, because you have constituents who are superintendents. And he said, yes, they are my enemy, and they're your enemy too. And in that same time frame, right adjacent to where we were standing, Breonna Davis of Russellville, the senator who presented the bill in the first place, was saying basically the same thing. And then later to the committee. And then last week, she's recorded as saying, I watched it during the Senate Ed committee meeting. She said that superintendents were misleading people at best and lying at worst. And so that's the kind of rhetoric that is coming out of our government. And the purpose is to divide us. Later that day, there was a tweet where that Senator Breonna Davis attacked a superintendent publicly asked for government agencies to investigate him because he allowed some of his teachers to come to the meeting. And so I'm not sure, your question is, why were people saying reps were trying to turn superintendents against us and against them? That is why, is because they are doing that. I hope I'm answering your question with some examples that helps you understand, but you can private message me too, and I can provide you links to those, some of those tweets and some of those conversations. And then we've also written up those experiences of those direct conversations, but it's a well-known tactic.
So a good example of a counter message there, right, is your committee testimony could be to say, you guys in the state legislature, this is your responsibility, your job to determine this. This is not the fault of the local communities who make the very best with what you give them, with the conditions that you allow them to operate in. So that's a great example of a message that I think would be great to hear on Tuesday.
Another thing, this is kind of to Mr. H's point, but another thing that has been said, like two different messages, is that day Bart Hester said to us that people, and Stone, I think you're on here, he said this to my husband, he said, we have begged superintendents for their input, and I have heard from zero, blah, 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 about this bill, which we knew not to be true because we know several superintendents. And then on the other hand, in the Senate Ed Committee meeting, Breanne Davis, the senator, was saying multiple superintendents have consulted on this bill and from the very beginning given their input. So they were saying completely opposite things. And neither one were true.
Kimberly?
Oh, and just on that point, and if y'all were watching at the meeting, Senator Davis said the first thing that the superintendents asked for was to get rid of the Fair Teacher Dismissal Act. She stated that, like, they begged to get rid of that.
Yes.
So, and she said, and I don't know why superintendents are acting like they did not ask that they are. And she basically said that they were lying.
Right. And that's not true either. That's not true.
It's a lot of divide and conquer, right? We see that on a lot of issues, and certainly in education, this is the ground where that tries to happen. Any other questions about testifying or anything else?
Jenny Fusen said she read an amendment, said a teacher can plead their case to the school board, but her concern is that if districts do not have enough money to pay teachers, the reason for dismissal may not have anything to do with how great of a teacher I am. And that you're exactly right. I mean, fair dismissal has its issues. One of the issues, is that people can be just fired. So, can be fired very easily. Coach, for example, it could be more of a university style thing where if there's, somebody has 3 losses and they kick them out and they have 3 board members to vote for that, then it would happen. But the other point where you're making, it wouldn't even have to be, the dismissals will happen. If 100,000, you just imagine this, 100 students leave a school the size of Ozark. What is that? $750,000? If 100 students left the school the size of my school, we're a town of 3,500, that'd be $750,000. There would be people lose their jobs. They would have to. And so, you're exactly right. That wouldn't have anything to do necessarily with somebody being a good teacher or not, or it being about fair dismissal. It's just the math.
Well, and that's another good point, right? The Arkansas Learns bill, the primary purpose, I mean, it's not stated, right? But the primary effect of the bill is to starve public schools of funding. I mean, that is the direct consequence of this legislation. Looks like some other stuff in the chat. Any other questions? Not trying to rush people off, but just trying to use the most of your time on this Sunday best we can.
Christy Mall, are you raising your hand?
Can you hear me?
Now I can.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. Just really quickly, and I don't know if this belongs here or not, but we have a 1A school. County Line is a 1A school. We have 28 to 30 families in our 500 to 75 K through 12 school that are homeschooled. Take that money out of our budget and we've got nothing. On
Yeah.
top of that, part of this Learns bill is to add an assistant superintendent. We don't need an assistant superintendent. Our superintendent does a fine job, but that's another $80,000 to $100,000 that's going to come out of that budget. But what I was going to tell you is my neighbor, who is a retired educator, has been very involved in grant writing and very educated, wrote to our local senator, it's your senator too, our state senator, and his response was that he has been trying to slow this bill down, which I know to be a falsehood. But he also stated that he has been getting more calls negative about Learns than positive. But the reason why is those negative calls are because his constituents are against the $50,000 raise for teachers because they only work 180 days out of the year, and $50,000 is entirely too much money for those teachers. That's the call volume that he's been getting. This is a state senator who gets what, $48,000 for what, 2 months that he's working, but
Yeah.
we get paid too much at $50,000. So that's the mentality that we're getting from
He may just
our
be calling
legislators.
himself there. Yeah,
share.
he may be leaving himself voicemails there, I think, in different voices, probably. I don't know that anybody's calling him
Could
on.
very well be.
I
Could
guess
very
he
well
was,
be.
I guess he was trying real hard to slow it down when he voted it right through the Senate.
Exactly. That was my 2 points that I made too hard to respond to him were, why did you vote for it if that's the case? And how much do you make as a state senator for how many days work?
Yeah.
So just wanted
Could I
to
just
share
say
that.
one more
Thanks.
thing too? This is, this fight does not end in this session, right? And so this group and what we do here, right, is just going to grow. And so, we may not win all these battles, but we are putting up an amazing fight. Any other questions, comments?
How does this this is Jesse Magruder again from Crittenden County. How does this correlate in regards to the Lakeview lawsuit also?
So, okay,
yeah.
go ahead, Gwen.
Well, I was just going to say, and Ezra, you can probably answer this better. I think it's unconstitutional. I think that there's a case to be made that it does not satisfy the Lakeview case. Senator Clark Tucker made a statement like that and made that case in the Senate. And I know myself of attorneys, really, really good attorneys who are looking at that. I think that that is something that could come, and there are things that what will happen, or the way that I envision this is, here's what I hope happens. Tuesday, thousands of people show up. The House Ed Committee realizes, no, but we're going to lose control of this state if we do not stop this. They stop it, and then so we get Learns stopped. That's my goal for Tuesday. Whatever happens, if they go ahead and just ram it through, no matter what we do, I think that's the next thing that happens, Jesse, I think you could make that argument even in the House, if you want to say that in your testimony. I mean, that's a thing that could be said. This does not satisfy Lakeview, and here's why. I think if this does get rammed through, I think there will be challenges. I hope that, our courts are not so corrupt and partisan that we could get it stopped there. We could get some justice there. And I'm just going to go ahead and mention, the next resort after that is you can do a ballot referendum that strikes it. Recently, there was a poll in Arizona where 67% of the population polled as against vouchers. Their government rammed it through anyway. If we could get some polling like that in this state, if you could get 60% or 65 or 67 like Oklahoma to say we don't want vouchers, that's when Arkansans vote with like some critical thinking skills and common sense is when stuff is on a ballot referendum and it's not a choice between party. And so I'm starting to think about those things already. You know, it's like for me, Tuesday is like, it's where we do this last huge push and we try to get it stopped, and hopefully we will. But we all know that if whatever happens on Tuesday, if that's not what happens, this fight won't be over, and then we still have those options. So I don't know if that answers your question enough, Jesse, but that's what I think about that.
Yes, that helps me a lot.
For those of you that are given the ACT on that day, if you feel comfortable showing up on social media somehow, I really think parents just don't know. They really don't know what this is how this is gonna hurt their kids' education. And I don't really know what you'd want to say or put out there, but I have to be there for my kids for the ACT, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, if you feel comfortable showing up there, I think that even if people don't like it or whatever, they see it. And I think sometimes they're just scared to like things.
Mhm.
I think Jenny's 100% right. And if you can't be there in person, raise up your voice online. I mean, social media is watched a lot by legislators. I'll follow Jenny, follow others. We'll be throwing out hashtags. You can tag legislators if you want, but if you want to just tweet too, I mean, your community's watching you. So super impactful.
I will say this too, a little hope. I just really started paying attention to this about 3 years ago when I was recruited to run for office, and nobody would talk about this. I wanted to talk about it. I felt like I was just trying to get people like, the house is on fire, the house is on fire. And they were like sitting on the front porch drinking sweet tea and didn't want to, didn't care if the house was on fire or didn't believe me. And really, that's one of the places, Jenny Fusen, where I'm seeing that be different. Like there are people I remember trying to talk to who would not listen, who are now saying things online like, this Learns bill does not look good. I'm not happy with what our legislature is doing. And so I think that like shows some hope, right? And that is like this long game we're playing where we have to realize that we do everything we can do. And then we trust, that it's making a difference, even if we don't see the exact thing that we want in the exact moment. We saw that one of the most galvanizing things for me in that scenario is that we saw that happen with the rally this summer. Like, we rallied at the Capitol and we demanded teacher raises, and no one, legislators didn't want to even talk about teacher raises before then. And then by November, that was in August. And by November, everybody was talking about it for that election, like everyone. And legislators, the governor, everybody knew that it was important to the people and they had to talk about it. And I feel like that's even where this is coming from, that this $50,000 is in this bill, is because we forced that conversation. And so, we didn't get exactly what we wanted right at the moment, but we could sure see that we had a hand in making that conversation happen. And so I just think, our part is to do the work with all our hearts and with all our might, and then, trust the results, trust each other, and trust the process that the results, we will see them happen.
This has been really great, guys. Yeah, any other questions? Sorry, Jenny, go ahead.
Well, one thing that just to kind of wrap us up, you don't have to make it political, your position, your story. It's going to feel political because you're walking into a legislative committee during a session, but you can very well say, I'm not a political person. I am just here because of this, this, and this. And sometimes that's the most effective thing that a person can say in a political committee, is that you're just there because you want to do your job or you want your school to continue going. So I just wanted to say that is to not fret about that part. If you're not a political person, that is why your voice is so needed and welcome in this conversation.
And to just follow up on that, to Jenny's point, I think political rhetoric, not super helpful in these situations. I think personal stories, community stories, and then policy specific stuff, very impactful. Political fights, not worth it, not going to be won or lost here, not what we're here for.
Well, and I want to say too, and Jenny, you might could speak to this a little more, and Ezra, you might could as an attorney, but also you do not have to engage them if they try to get you in a political fight, right, Jenny?
Yeah, that's really important. I doubt, because of the amount of people we're going to have, that committee members are going to want to take questions or give questions to specific public testimony. If they do that, if they want you to stay after you're done speaking and ask you a question, you do not have to answer that. You're not in a court of law. You can just say, I've declined to answer that. So you may be asked to stay in the chair by the chair of the committee, to let a representative ask you a question, but you don't have to answer it.
I don't know if this could be an important thing for maybe several people to drop. I can't be there because I'm taking the ACT. Somehow I'm privileged enough to be on a texting relationship with Brianne Davis. And she texted me something yesterday, and she was very positive, and she pointed out that this bill will add $250 million into public schools. And I've seen a lot of numbers thrown around. Several people are really good at math and like, gosh, if 100 people leave, this is how much we're going to have. But I don't know if we have a number. Like, what is the number that we feel like realistically is going to be pulled out of public schools? Because I don't want them to be able to tout this $250 million
They
deposit.
they don't know. So the thing with universal vouchers is they have a proposed budget from the budget office for year 1 of voucher expansion, year 2, but year 3, when it goes universal, they don't know. And that's on the record by the joint budget chair, Jonathan Dismain, in the Senate.
But if they're saying the first year they're going to allow what 1.5% of all Arkansas students to participate in the voucher program. So if 1.5 students leave public schools, we can multiply that and get a number, right?
And I think they gave the budget committee the budget office representative gave a figure for both of those years. And we have them. I know 4Air People has them in our live tweet record of that. And we can pull them for you and get them for you, Laura, or whoever else wants that, since you won't be there. We can get you that.
I know I got into a discussion with Bart Hester about some of that. And when I started digging on those numbers, he could not answer at all. He finally just said he would have to go back and look at it. But, one of the things, which again, these people are not interested in data or relying on it to make their decisions. But one of the things to me that is most like telling about some of this is like Arizona passed this legislation 2 years ago, and the statistics that are coming from Arizona are already in 2 years like abysmal. And one of the biggest things that struck me was that 80% of the people applying for vouchers in Arizona right now are people who were already going to private school. So these are people like right now, if we calculate how many people are in private school and homeschool in Arkansas, and we multiply that by 7,500, it's over $300 million. And that's just new money that the state would have to come up with. So every time Brianne Davis says that we're going to put, $250 million into, public schools, I'm like, that's less than you would have to start paying out once the people who are just paying for their own private school right now start applying for these vouchers. So none of the numbers add up that they use, but that's a good one to like counter that with, because 250 sounds like a lot to put into public schools. But if you're going to have to take 300 million, somewhere else that could be going into that tax base, it's it's already more that's going to have to be going out just to pay for the existing people, not new people moving out of public school, the existing people who are affluent enough to pay their kids' way to private school right now. It's over $300 million. And nobody knows where
Hey,
that money's
Gwen,
going to
can
come
I,
from. Yeah.
can I say something really quickly with that? It's the same statistic for every state that has vouchers. It's 74% or higher that are already private school students who are getting those vouchers. It's a tax cut for the wealthy.
And that's
we've
every
said that over
year.
and over.
I
But
mean,
also-
that's every year from here on
Exactly.
out. It's 300 million. It's over 300 million
Exactly.
that we have to come up with the minute that universal vouchers opens up. And then it's every year from there on out. How are they going to fund that? They don't know.
Yes, and here's another point to go with that with the state government. And I just read this today. You may already realize this, but in the bill, there's a 5% filing fee, 5% processing fee for every one of those vouchers that are going to
Oh,
go
yeah.
to state money,
Oh,
from
yeah.
state money to private money. 5% for each one of those. Who's getting that money? What company is going to do those processing jobs? You know,
Thanks.
what family is going to be related to that? You know, that's grift right there, and it's going to cost the state funds to do that. That's ridiculous. My opinion. Sorry.
All right, Haley, do we know what information that is that Haley wants? Haley, are you still here? You put that in the chat. Does someone know what information that is that she wants? Are you sending that, Jenny?
Yeah, I just dropped
there
in
we
the
go.
chat. Those figures are from the budget office representative in Senate committee. The year 3, though, he said was just a guesstimate. And then later on in Senate floor, Jonathan Dismayne, who is the senator and chair of the Joint Budget Committee, said that figure is actually unknown. But they do have an estimated cost for year 1 and year 2 of voucher expansion. And that's what those numbers are.
Thanks. Anything else, you guys? Well, to try to honor our time, it's 8. I know we all have work and plenty that we're doing to get ready for Tuesday. So thank you so much. I'm going to put my phone number here. If you guys want to contact me by text directly, feel free to use that number. Or you can email, of course, you know, if you're on the Arkansas Strong list where you get newsletters, if you even just reply to those emails directly, it'll come to me. And I'm sure as far, you know, Jenny's with For Our People, and glad to help. You can contact her there. I'm trying just my best to get information out to help any way that I can with anybody who's trying to fight this fight. So you know, we get off now and you think of something else, doesn't mean I'll know the answer, but I'll certainly try to point you to the answer if I know where to find it. And just if you want to get more involved and be in contact, just feel free to contact us there or at email. Anything else, Jenny?
I think that's it. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we hope to see your faces on Tuesday. And if not, we know you're with us, and we appreciate you more than you can know.
That's right. And we're with you. Thank you, guys.